Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Cassandra Powell. I am the Executive Director of Light of Loving Kindness. Light of Loving Kindness is a 501c3 nonprofit organization located on the south side of Chicago. Our mission is to provide access to holistic wellness tools along the line of integrative medicine, alternative and complementary medicine, and as well mindfulness-based interventions. So today we have our second men's panel. It's back by request. Before the first panel was over, we were already receiving requests to have a second panel. So thank you so much for joining us on this panel. We are working on creating a third panel. We're thinking third and final, but I won't use the word final because you never know what's going to happen. But we are working on a third panel for June. So if you're tuning in right now, just stay in contact and be on the lookout for more information on that panel. But before we get started, I want to say thank you. First of all, thank you to everyone who has participated in One Breath Chicago. Thank you to everyone that's on this panel today. Thank you to everyone who has been on our panels in January. We had 5 panels in January. Thank you for all of you who have created breathwork videos, submitted videos. Thank you for everyone that has watched videos. Thank you to the LOLK team. I have to thank my team because they have edited and posted and created, and it has been a wonderful process for us. And this is our very last week of One Breath Chicago. So thank you to my team as well. I would say they worked tirelessly. It wasn't tirelessly, but it was very consistently. So we are so thankful. And then to Utopia Connect as well, who has partnered with us in the beginning for this, our call to action. So for all of you who have watched one or more videos, everyone, thank you. To our board, everyone, I just want to say thank you. You can find all of the videos from One Breath Chicago, including the panel discussions, on YouTube under Light of Loving Kindness. Or, of course, you can use pound One Breath Chicago, and they will come up as well. So OBC, One Breath Chicago, was created for you. It's created for individuals, created for communities. It was our call to action, our COVID response, if you will. It was our offering to help stem the onslaught of anger, frustration, violence, depression, anxiety, so many things that so many of us are dealing with every day, from children all the way to adults. So thank you for joining us to help make a difference. If One Breath Chicago made a difference in one person's life, and that difference reverberated into other people's lives, into their children or to a coworker, then it has really been worth every day and every opportunity and every video. So thank you from the top and bottom and all sides of our hearts. Also, I want to mention that we are on the last day of a donation drive. So we're doing a $5 donation drive. So if you can donate, please do. If you can't, don't sweat it. But if you can, help us to keep our programs free. We are moving into the Self-Love Bootcamp and our Leadership Intern Program for young people. And we really want to just keep flowing and allowing these opportunities to share these holistic tools of healing. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Muriel Baptiste of Utopia Connect.
Thank you, Cassandra. And I just want to say or mirror exactly what you've said. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to your team, Cassandra, as well for, yes, working tirelessly. Let's own that. So I am Muriel Baptiste. I'm the Executive Director of the Utopia Connect Foundation. We are also a 501c3 nonprofit working with youth and families and dedicating much of our programming towards advancing women and girls. But while we focus our emphasis on women and girls, we also place emphasis on young men. So today's work matters to supporting that effort of nurturing young men. And I want to thank our seasoned and experienced panelists today for the work that you're doing and investing in being role models in guiding the supportive conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For more information about what we do at Utopia Connect Foundation, you can connect with us at utopiaconnectfoundation.org. And I look forward to this session, and thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Cassandra.
Okay, thank you so much, Muriel. And without further ado, I will introduce you all to our panel at this time. So I'm going to start off introducing the panel with our facilitator for the day, who is Frank Mitchell. I will be reading part of the bios, but you can read all about all of our panelists on all of our social media platforms. So Frank is a director, multidisciplinary artist, and dedicated yogi and teacher. He holds a BFA from the School of Art Institute of Chicago and a certification with Yoga Alliance. He has studied Bikram, Ashtanga, and Kemetic yoga. Frank is based in Chicago, and you can find him at various venues in Chicago. You can also find out how to follow Frank by reading his complete bio. Next, we have Luis Crespo. Luis has worked as a teaching artist throughout Chicago for over 15 years. He uses theater, creative writing, music, and the arts to inspire and motivate young people to recognize their greatness and potential as they create original works for the stage. You can learn more about Luis at Future in Motion, and he is also a vocalist for the Chicago rock band Kelroy, the Santana tribute band, Shades of Time, and he works with After School Matters. Dr. Obari Cartman is a father, son, brother, uncle, writer, therapist, photographer, drummer, and grassroots mental health advocate. Dr. Cartman is the program director for Real Men Charities, Inc., where he facilitates weekly men's wellness and African drumming circles. He is also the current president of the Chicago Association of Black Psychologists. Daryl Satcher is a performance arts storyteller and a wellness specialist. He created A Leading Man to enlighten and empower young people to become the director of the film in their own heads, blending arts and wellness. Daryl is a love and light being. Christopher or Chris K. Thomas, a former Marine with 15 years of entrepreneurial and leadership experience and 10 years in HR and staffing. His greatest aspiration in life are to provoke change in the world, to help people live out their passion and improve the way communities live and work. He is the founder and CEO of Your Passion First, which is a mentoring program for young people. Dr. Larry Turner is a licensed clinical psychologist, a registered nurse, a substance abuse therapist, and a certified yoga therapist. He has worked with survivors of traumatic experiences in Chicago and throughout the world, and he is the founder of the Therapeutic Inventory Institute. And finally, Mike Zolfo. Mike is the founder and originator of Samapati Yoga, which includes teachings from all of the schools of yoga he has studied in over 34 years of practice. He has studied, practiced, and taught all of these various forms of yoga since 1984. And he is also a certified yoga instructor and yoga therapist at the Yoga Room in Crown Point, Indiana. And that is our panel for you today. So I am going to remove myself from this camera and enjoy the discussion, everyone.
Thanks, Cassandra. Again, my name is Frank Mitchell. I'm going to kind of kick us off here. I wanted to thank you, Cassandra, and the wonderful organization that you have for inviting us and getting this panel together of great, strong, dedicated men. We had a really good and robust conversation the last time, and so I wanted to kind of jump back in maybe where we left off, and just kind of throw a question out there, get a feel of the room here. Wanted to kind of find out what, and anyone just jump in, what our go-to holistic tools are, things that we use for balancing our emotions, especially when you are on the verge of feeling out of control.
I'll go ahead and get us started off. I really created a positive, balanced, and healthy wellness lifestyle where I have a plethora of things in my wellness kit to choose from. But I start my day with the Miracle Morning Magic Ritual, which usually and lately has been including, it's always some form of meditation, but it's been straight meditation with what I like to call Victoria's vernacular, some mantras that I put together in a visual prayer treatment. And then I do some vision work in the form of like 2-minute mental movies that I do. And I'll also take a nature walk, most days. So when I am doing that and really disciplined, man, it seems like the problems are out there and things tend to go right. When I say go right, let me rephrase that. I'm more at peace, which makes my world around me more at peace.
Probably because you've set up that foundation from the get-go.
Exactly. It's like finding that inner ride, starting the day in that sense. But when I fall off, and it could be a lot of different things. Sometimes it could be comedy. It could be like, I need to laugh out loud, or it could be a bike ride or different things like that. Because it's about listening to self and knowing what I need. Sometimes it's yoga and different things, but that's the foundation. I can use some of those mantras throughout the day. Also, definitely journal writing. I'm a big time writer, so those are some of the things that I do.
Did you copyright that? What was the name again?
Which
mantra?
Oh, Miracle Morning Magic Ritual.
Miracle Morning Mantra. Miracle.
It's not my original word. So
okay, I appreciate it. Luis, what about you? What are some of your tools that you use, especially when things kind of feel on the verge of getting out of control there?
When things are on the verge of getting out of control, in the moment when I really have, when you kind of put that in perspective, I kind of count with my breaths. So I'll just breathe in once, 1, breathe out, 2, breathe in, 3, breathe out, 4. Like when I'm really ready to like lose it, and I know that I may say or do something that I'm going to regret later, and generally that's sort of part of the cycle of guilt that happens as a person who might be struggling with anger. Breathing helps a lot, and just trying to remember that your breath can kind of center you and it can balance you. And like Daryl was mentioning there, the preparation before that, it helps a lot. Like being able to just have a routine, whether that's getting up and doing something very positive or whatever your meditation is. Those moments really do help set up. So when you're about to lose it, that you can have the moment to take a breath and a step back to be like, okay, I'm just going to breathe right now. So that is something that I really use often, all the time. And this idea of mantras that are ringing in my mind throughout the day, very positive thoughts and ideas. Those are really good things that I use to try to redirect the train of thought that might be making me get angry or defensive, because when I get defensive, me personally, it seems like that's when I can lose control.
Yeah,
that's a long-winded answer to your question.
No. I think it's really important to that we're highlighting routines and kind of getting yourself into that from the get-go, like you guys said. And then you've always kind of got that thing to fall back on, if things get a little bit more stressful. Let's kind of continue with that and think about like our relationships that we have with our families, with our kids, with our spouses, coworkers, and that kind of thing. Larry, what do you think about healthy ways for men to address and express when they feel kind of out of control or anger, within relationships with their spouse or whomever, their children?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to be able to recognize the feeling and the state that you're in. Although, getting out of control can happen in the middle. Yes, but a lot of times you can feel it building up. Me personally, years ago, whenever I would get angry, I'd go for a run. I ended up, running was great. Running was great for about 20 years. But at some point, you're going to have to deal with it emotionally, and on a cognitive level. The breathing, as Lewis said, the meditation, as Daryl said, all those tools come in. If I'm in a situation like when I was working in the hospitals, listening to some of my coworkers in meetings, and I hate meetings, by the way, I would physically get up and remove myself. Sometimes you have to go to the bathroom, whatever tools that you can use, because I've had those moments when anger comes out. Sometimes you can't get it back, and you end up in a difficult situation. But now, through constantly assessing and listening to other people talk about what they hate and feeling the emotions build up, I've learned to recognize it and address it. And I like feeling happy all the time. I like feeling happy. And when I'm not feeling, pretty good, it's usually because of some traumatic event that is out of my control, or it's something that I'm not accepting. And it's okay for me to be sad, but at some point I'm going to have to accept things. And having people that I can contact, or looking at doing the work ahead of time, like what Daryl was saying. Like if you go for a walk, I'm just walking, I'm getting my lungs clear, but then I'm looking at the birds. I'm looking at the leaves on the trees. I'm looking at the children playing, and I'm trying to impound those memories inside of me that these are wonderful, joyous things. And that when I get angry, it's not a good thing. That's why I personally, you shouldn't ask me to talk. I don't have a gun, because I know that for me, that I'm a man and that I'm capable of, if I let my emotions get out of control and I have a weapon that can cause that type of destruction, it's quite possible emotionally I'm capable of using it. You don't get that back.
Yeah.
That's why I don't, that's me personally.
The same thing, we always don't have lethal weapons, but we've got weapons that we have at our access, that are not as lethal, but are still very damaging, that, we employ all the time.
Yes.
And to be able to get a hold of that right away. I want to get Mike and Chris and Obari into here as well. You guys and relationships, are there things that you can employ to kind of have those relationships move a little smoother? What happens when you've been, we've all been guilty of being volatile, of being in that situation, and sort of setting a pattern for that sometimes. How do you wind up getting yourself out of that? What are some tools that you guys use in order to be able to better relate to, your spouse or your children, especially when things have been tough for you, I guess?
I was going to say, for me, like from my experience, I want to echo what everyone else has said too, just as far as like, for me, looking at lifestyle choices. And I was very much aware of this when I was, I think of it now, it's 37 years ago. It seems like only yesterday, but 37 years ago when I became aware of what was inside of me. And like even Larry says, just the potential of what I could do to harm myself or to harm other people. And so, like Daryl was saying, I always view like my whole life has been having a backpack that was empty when I was 24 years old, and I'm filling it up. I literally have filled it up with every single solitary yogic technique, meditation technique, prayer technique, anything I could get my hands on. So that, and that would include too diet and nutrition, and that as a holistic way of looking at things. So that's my repertoire. Affirmations, sankalpas as we call them in yoga, all of those tools. And then because life happens, and still in my marital relationship and with my kids, stuff comes up, and then I need some of those tools. And what I do personally is I literally draw from different tools at different times based upon the moment. So I'm just sitting here writing down. I have 4 breathing techniques that I might draw from on any given day at any given time. Meditation technique, scripture reading, prayer, centering prayer, sacred silence. Seriously, I just have an abundance of things that I would use at any given time. And like Luis was saying, like in the moment, breath work works best for me. And just like he said, inhaling for a 2-3 second count, pausing and holding my breath for a second, and then exhaling, after that, just a longer exhalation. And that brings me back to a center. So those are some of the things that I, have used and still continue to use in my practice. So.
Yeah, and I know we've got, a lot of a group of young men watching as well. Chris, I wanted to get you into this as well. How do you work with young men in order to kind of get them to see how they can balance their emotions a little bit better, rather than just telling them, but, what are some ways we can show them?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like what Larry said. Sometimes you have to accept things, and sometimes you have to take yourself out of situations that aren't making you happy. And I think that a lot of young adults are kind of looking for what is that thing that's going to make them happy, right? A lot of them think it's money, right? Until you really get in, and then you're not making money, and then you're not happy on those days. Mm-hmm. And so, a big reason I started the organization was to create a space where young adults could go and find that thing that does them happy. There's a balance, especially as you get workforce. There's a balance between going and working a job you don't really like, right? But are you putting yourself in positions to get to the thing that you like and that you love and that you want to be? And so I think that that's really where the distinction is starting to understand what that vision is, and then planning around that and putting people around you that can really help support you in that.
Yeah. And a lot of times we wind up just kind of continuing these routines that we feel stuck, that builds up a lot of frustration. And so, if you're not working on those sort of things that give you passion, that give you, hope and that sort of thing. Abari, I know that you do some great community work on the South Side, and wanted to ask you about how you approach community healing, not just individualistic, but bringing healing to groups.
I love this discussion. I think that everything that my brothers have shared, I echo, I affirm, and the question about how to bring this to community is really about first and foremost building relationships, because we can have lots of tools and the backpacks full of kits and the mantras and the exercises. And they help us, and we can, I could go to the community and pass out a pamphlet of information. We're in an information age. Yeah. You can Google all this stuff, right? You can find all this, YouTube, guided meditations. The missing link from the information we have access to and getting that to the young men that need it most is relationships. And for that is just time and space and putting yourself in the right places and finding ways to engage that are mutually beneficial, teaching principles of exchange. There's something, everybody wants something, and trying to find ways to offer just the first basic step of engaging them based on what they want, and then slowly incorporating the things that that they need. And so for a lot of boys, talk about the boys on the South Side, you know, if it's just, you know, finding a place, especially right now, because they've been isolated, you find access to an open gym where you say, y'all get to play basketball for an hour, for 2 hours, after we spend some time doing some breathing, doing some meditation, doing some emotional intelligence conversations, those kind of hooks, those kind of incentives. I think we should pay kids for this kind of stuff. They are in a world where they're getting paid to do things that are not healthy for them. And they're learning that principle of exchange and causing harm to themselves, to the neighborhood. And if we can be strategic about using grant money, using foundations, whatever it is, like really innovative, creative practices where we can go to community, understand that the pain and trauma they've experienced, we understand in ways that they may not, because they may not, because they still in the midst of it. Right. Part of what we have afforded ourselves is some space from it. And we need to, with urgency, find ways to connect, to build relationships, to share what we know, but not do it from a teaching, a free. I could, you know, I do free yoga. I do free wellness groups. The boys that need it, they don't show up, right? Unless a mom brings them, or unless a coach brings them. But the people that have the relationships have to engage with those of us that have skill sets and tools they need to, you know, slowly, gradually incorporate. And then once they have it in their body, once they have it in their experience, they're like, oh, well, I would have did know yoga before. I'm glad you made me do it.
Exactly.
You know, we know that as children. Just so many things that I'm glad my parents drugged me to that have made my life better. We just need to get back to that principle of that exchange. Give young people something that they need in exchange for something that we know they want.
What do you think are the hangups? Like, yeah, it's hard to get, especially young kids, to come and do yoga. What do you think are the hangups? And this is for everybody, you know, to not just yoga, but come into healing practices or even recognizing and being aware of our emotions. Why is it so hard for especially young kids? But I mean, there are grown men who are not in touch and not aware, and you know, and we really shy away from it. How do we break down that barrier? You know, are there ways? We can't pay everybody, although that's a great idea. And I know ASM, After School Matters in the city, has those programs and has some yoga programs in the city. But just in general, you know, how do we break down those stigmas?
I mean, that's why I love this panel, because it's men doing the work, talking about the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of this is reframing what it is that a man does, and so much of it is holding your breath. Like we taught to hold our breath, to puff our chest out, to hold, to tighten up. Right. And we think that it keeps us more safe and protects us. But the truth is, when you relax, you're actually more aware. You're actually more safe if you can breathe and flow and watch your back, you know what I'm saying? Like with awareness, you know what I'm saying? So we as men have to be in spaces where we can reshift that this is not women's work. Emotional intelligence, yoga, breathing, meditation. I think there's a conception that this is women's stuff. We have to break that by doing it in public, in spaces where they see us, in groups, doing it together, making it look cool, bringing music, connecting it to stuff that they like. Like we have to do that. Like we have to be more strategic about that, and that hope that they show up when they're ready.
I like to jump in on that as well. It's Daryl, by the way. I can talk from my experiences, and I've thought about this a lot. I think before I really started doing this wellness work, I was addicted to struggle. I didn't know that, but I was addicted to struggle. And there was a part of me that wanted to be in that space of constant irritation, constant frustration, stress, stressful, anxious type of lifestyle. There was a part of me that was there. And you know, and the thing that happened for me is, I think this, unfortunately, sometimes it has to happen for folks like this. Because we're being honest, we said that a lot of young men don't do this work. A lot of men, most people don't really do this work. Because if we're being honest, I'm sure all of us know some yoga teachers that don't really do this work. You know, if we're being honest. So I think it has to be a situation sometimes where maybe something tragic happens. For me, I was going through a midlife crisis. I was obese. I was not enjoying my life and what it was. So that was I knew I needed a spark. I felt like I was heading to a heart attack at 50 or before. So I needed to make a change for self. But it was me getting tired of my own BS.
Yeah.
That's really what it was. It was me saying, you know what? I'm gonna prioritize my self-care. And I remember I heard someone talk about, they knew someone that started their day and they gave the first 2 hours of the day to themselves. And for me, that felt like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, if I could get to do something like that, that could be really interesting. And so that was something that I worked to do. But it's just it's the constant work. You know, we are definitely servants when it comes to service and what we do. We're definitely teachers and leaders and mentors. But I got to be a student too. You know, I'm a part of a space where I'm the student and I'm getting something out of it as well. So it's a constantly like the progressive spirit. But you know, you have to really make a decision on, do I want to continue to feel the way I'm feeling, or do I want to be happy?
Yeah.
You know, and make a conscious decision that I want to be happy. I'm not happy yet, but just making the decision that I want to be happy is, in the words of Reverend Ike, what you recognize, you energize.
Yeah.
You know, so
Right.
It's like, what are you recognizing in your life? Are you recognizing the negativity? Are you recognizing the positivity? And for me, it's like, and I'll stop after this. I had a lot of trapped emotions, stuff that I had not forgiven myself for from childhood. I was still, you know, hadn't left myself off the hook, still angry at myself for that stuff. So I started, I heard about mirror work and I started doing some mirror work. And when I started doing that mirror work, I started to face myself, forgive myself for some different things. So now when something comes up and it starts to boil up, I got to face it now. I got to face it right now, go through the breakdown and whatever that is so that I can get to the breakthrough. Not rush it, but practice facing it, because I was so scared to face stuff in the past. So I try to practice it because I don't want things to become trapped emotions. Because I think a lot of the rage and anger that we see, it's not, we most of the time we're not mad at that thing as we act like we are, or that person that we act like we are. A lot of times when we're upset at people, we're really upset at ourselves, but we're trying to unload the pain off of ourselves. So that's just my thoughts.
You know, thank you, my brother. You brought up Reverend Ike. I ain't heard that name in a long time, man.
Got to.
But you know, I was with Philip Jackson when he started Black Star Project, and I worked for years with Jawanza Kunjufu in the Community of Men. And like Obari had said, when we did the after-school groups with Community of Men, the young men who and it was mostly women that brought their sons, the young men who really needed it didn't show up. So one of the things I think we need to do is we need to address our institutions, and that is the school and the prison system. Children are in school 7 hours a day. There is no way they should not be learning this discussion of what we're talking about in a culturally sensitive manner, because anybody can put together a social emotional learning program. And I'm not saying there's not good things in there, but you have to have a hook. You got to have some rap music. You got to have some drumming. You got to have some art. You got to have some acting. And you got to have people that look like you doing that stuff. And you have to, ideally, you want the children to take that home to the parents, because a lot of parents just ain't showing up for the PTA meetings. You know, that's plain and simple. The other places that you can do is the prison system, because a lot of our men are there. And if you look at there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of long time, and they have come to peace through various means of their captivity. You know, my last job was was as a psychologist in the juvenile detention center. And so we brought some yoga into there, and because of all the institutional regulations, we weren't able to smooth the program out as we could. But when they were in isolation for fighting or attacking a guard or something, it was much easier to do the breathing, to do the relaxation with the young men. So I think we just really need to stop repeating the same things and address the institutions. There's no reason that we can't have some of these things in the school system. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we talk about schools and things that happen there, Luis, you work in the schools here in the city. how are we, we talked about yoga, we've talked about breathing. Let's just briefly talk about arts and other tools that we can use in order to make things cool, to make things, there's drumming. So there's a wide variety of artistic things we can be doing in order to bring people to meditation or to awareness and that sort of thing. Louis, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And there's already been a few mentions of art and how that can be a great way to tap into a meditation without any tricks. Daryl had mentioned doing murals and he kind of mentioned that once he did the mural, he felt a release. He felt something good in doing that. I apologize for paraphrasing. And also this idea that that the arts are an escape valve for young people.
Yeah.
You don't need programming to pay you. You don't necessarily need that. For any young people who are listening, there is a wonderful, awesome release that you have with a pen and a paper, with a paintbrush and paint, with your voice, with your phone to record a video, to sing a song, to sing to yourself, there's a lot of many beautiful things that have been echoed in this call, which is happiness. And what do you want to do to be happy, and what makes you happy? And at the end of the day, sometimes there's this stigma that you don't deserve it. You don't deserve to be happy. And someone had mentioned this idea of being comfortable with that atmosphere, that you almost feel like you're stuck in being that way. And you're not stuck in that way. And you can grab an instrument, you can release, and in those moments of artistic wonder, you kind of are free. So you don't necessarily need programming. What Obari was mentioning, this idea of there's programming out there. There's free programming, there's paid programming. Every single program should be paid. All these young people are putting in a lot of commitment, and they're generating wonderful, beautiful, artistic awesomeness that is just as good as anything that they might hear on the radio, on media that is at times pieced and fed to us as a society. So a lot of what the gentlemen have been echoing in this sense of cultures need to be not necessarily, our cultures are awesome, and there are certain things that are set in place to make it difficult to find paid programming or to go to a free program. And the lens that we have to sort of put, I love what everyone's saying is like, we have to model it, being sure of yourself, whatever that looks like, is okay. Being happy is okay. Showing love is okay. Loving yourself is awesome, and it's okay, even though you may not feel like you deserve it. Or I wanted to go back when you mentioned about family. And at times when we're angry, we don't put into perspective the compassion part of it, what we're doing to the other people, what the other person is getting from our anger, from our reactions. And then if we're compassionate in ourselves, there's usually a moment afterwards where we're like, dang it, I wish I didn't do that. And it's heart-wrenching, Larry, when you mentioned that you can't take certain things back verbally, and there's certain actions you can do that you can never take back. And it's horrible to get to that place of, I'm sure,
well, and then we wind up in cycles.
Is like to be
right?
out of control. I'm sorry, I was kind of
no, it's okay. We wind up in those cycles, right? And the things that we do, like we talked about, Larry talked about, the things that you mentioned were reminiscent of what I hear in recovery. So, there's a lot of addictions that we kind of have. We can be addicted to struggle, kind of like Daryl said. we can be addicted to these things, these cycles that we have. You know, Larry, you kind of mentioned the things that we can control, the things that we can accept, and the difference between those things. It's the serenity prayer, right? How, and this is for everyone, you know, let's talk a little bit about breaking those cycles and figuring out how we get out of those.
I want to add an element to the conversation in terms of cycle breaking that can be easily missed because we get so used to things as they are. We kind of just accept these systems are in place, that this must be how systems are run, how money flows, how schools are built. Like we just accept that this is what it is. But none of it's true. Like it was, all of these are ideas somebody made. The name of the country, the policies, the laws. I'm here in Sedona, Arizona, and it's easy in the Southwest to remember that we own somebody else's land, and that they build in sort of like mansions in the rock. But like this ain't your rock. Like this ain't your, you know, this is the imposition. I'm here in this little cafe, right, with a bunch of juices and, you know, salons. So like this ain't these people's land. They profited off of it and they enjoying it and they come in and retire. But there's a level of anger underneath the day-to-day of what it means to be an American that what to Larry's point, I think that when we think about addressing institutions, it's not just about finding ways to engage innovatively in prisons or in schools. Part of it also means breaking some of the systems that create the cycles. That if we just lean on ourselves to say this addiction to struggle or the addiction to whatever it is, or the violence or the conceptualization of manhood is what we teach our children and we pass down to our children without putting in the context of intergenerational systemic racism, poverty, economic disenfranchisement, the fact that some kids don't have access to programs because they live in the wrong zip codes. Like we can't just breathe our way out of some of this stuff. Some of it means warfare. Some of it means fight. Some of it means attacking. Some of it means defending. Like there's a level of niceties that won't get us to the level that we need to make sure that most of the children in the city have access to the things that are just normal human being stuff, that the happiness and joy. There's structural opposition to happiness and joy for populations in the city.
To
So
kind of expand on what you're to riff off what you're saying, Obari, art is a great way to use that anger and to use that knowledge and to use that to use everything you just eloquently said, that many young people might be feeling. There are beautiful ways to attack and try to breaking down the system is something that needs to happen. But will it happen, and how can it happen? How can you sort of change a whole structure that kind of is set in motion? But you can use art. You can use art, and you could be eloquent, you could be beautiful, you could be clever, you could be thoughtful, you could be, as many artists throughout history have done and have been able to speak out and have been able to gain power that cannot be taken away. Art is a great way to do that. And sometimes you could do it just for yourself. You could do it for yourself. Don't underestimate the power of just doing it for you. And then there are beautiful people, most of them on this call right here, who will help you on your way. You know, you just do it, and then you will find those folks who will help you. And this is for our young folks listening. There are wonderful, powerful people who love you and are unconditionally out there to help you, as much as there might be not as much, but there's help out there. So know that with your art, you can create, and you can at least heal a little bit.
Let me piggyback on that too. I'm so glad you said that, first of all, Abari, because that's something we got to deal with. I do think that this system that we're in does cause mental health situations and issues. I'm not going to, I don't have anything. Well, I'm working on finding things to back that up, but there have been studies about that. So I'm not going to say it causes this particular mental health situation.
Yeah,
but
generational trauma.
yeah, okay, there we go. Let's talk about it. Epigenetics. And so, I mean, some of the people on here know this. Louis, you don't know this. I made a film. Where I addressed it and it was really talking to myself, but I knew other people would work with it. So, Stockholm Syndrome. I know most people know what that is, but for the people listening, Stockholm Syndrome is when you've been oppressed so much, you start to see your oppressor as your savior. You start to identify with them. And I made it. I believe that all African American folks, for lack of a better term, right now, that their ancestors went through slavery, have a form of Stockholm Syndrome. Depending on the generation, the more it is. So I decided to cast my Stockholm Syndrome as a character in my film. And the message that I was putting out is that until we can divorce ourselves from the white supremacists within us, we won't. That's how we defeat the system, by defeating the white supremacists in us. Because a lot of us, we see our oppressor and the system as our savior, as our God. A lot of people do.
We've just inherited that, right?
Programming. So like one of the most liberating things I did for myself was when I realized that I've been programmed, and I said, I'm going to work on unprogramming myself.
Yeah.
That's one of the best things. So they don't tell me how everything's supposed to work, and I just accept it how it is. No, I can go within and find that inner wisdom within. So
this is exactly what we're talking about. I think we're talking about reprogramming ourselves from whatever point in time that we become aware of it, that these cycles and these generational things are catching up to us. They catch up to us. We find ourselves unhappy or unable to do, and we've got no tools. So once we've kind of done that awareness work, then we kind of move into other things. What about, and let's get Chris in here too, and Abar, you mentioned good cultural things. We get a barrage of bad cultural things as well. Music, media, things that are reinforcing these stigmas, things that are reinforcing these traumas. How do we combat that?
I was talking to one of the young adults in the program about his music, and
did he want to hear it?
I asked him. I said, "Huh?
Did he want to hear it?"
I think he took it to heart, right? Because I brought it back to him in a way where he really had to look at it and put it into perspective. But he had a song that he was going to put out, and I listened to it, and I was like, I don't know if he's telling the truth in this song. Right. And so it was about like shooting and all this. And I was like, listen, bro, how do you feel like with all the songs that you've put out? Which one did you feel the best about?
Yeah.
He said, I felt the best about the one that I told the truth in about my homie passing. And I said, people going, right? And so if you are going out doing things that affect yourself and the community negatively, and then going to rap about it, right? That's not healthy for you or for anyone. I think it's about, it really comes down to integrity. And there's a lot of garbage that comes in out there. And I think the one thing I tried to stress to him is don't bring garbage in and don't put garbage out. The more we can just be positive and put forth love and put forth things that are progressive, and I think a lot of young adults are trying to do that, but a lot of them are out there, looking at the glamour and the glitz and trying to find the fast track to that. And the best way to get there is to be patient and to take your time and to have discipline.
I agree. Love it. The patience, the discipline, the love, completely. And we also have to address the money. It might feel good for him to put out something that is honest, that has integrity, that heals the community, but he's smart enough to know that that's not going to make more money than the garbage. And so we, as the adults, have to figure out some way to support the good stuff, to financially compensate the good stuff, and create infrastructure around it so that they can see that as a viable financial opportunity for them to feed themselves and their children. Otherwise, peace and love will dry up eventually. And as we're competing against actual practical, day-to-day realities for them.
Right. I would totally agree with that. There is a lot of good stuff out there. We're not going to hear it on the radio or on the TVs, but we can promote it in groups. Once again, we get back to our institutions. There's WVON has a television program. There are radios there, so we could promote the artists if we get together collectively and do that. We've been dealing with this stuff about negative vibes for like 30 years.
Yeah.
Back when Tupac and Biggie were out there. And in the groups I have again with Community of Men, we would have the boys bring in one of their favorite songs, and we might have something like Nas or something like that. And we would tell them, okay, let's go over this song. And we would analyze the song. But again, this was just, and get their opinions. This was just in a small group. And I think it's time out for that. We need to, once again, address our institutions. Why can't we have classes that diagnose our art, our music? If we don't, we're paying taxes for education, but we've left it up to someone else to decide how this education should go.
Well, we wait on the institutions. We're going to be waiting we have been waiting a long time, waiting on our institutions and begging for different things. Now, when it comes to this work that we do, there's a manifestation component to it. And people, the people who are the rich folk, real rich folks, they do this manifestation work too. They do it.
Yeah.
And everybody here has envisioned something and made it a reality. Everybody here. So let's talk. We can talk about the breathing. Obviously, is great. We know that the peace and love, all that kind of stuff, the love and light. But let's talk about things that you can manifest tangibly, can envision and do that vision work and see it and feel it and know it and hear it and taste it and touch it, and then make it a reality. Even everyone who is watching this has manifested something in their life before. You just have to understand that it wasn't happenstance. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a coincidence. You were able to do that. You made a decision. I want this, and you manifested and made it happen. I mean, we can talk about that too. We can talk about breathing all day long, but let's talk about things that actually happen. What have you manifested?
Well, and so some of that
was a vision in Chris's head.
Yeah, exactly.
That was real. Obari, everybody here, we've all manifested stuff. Let's talk about some of that work too. That could be something of interest to these young folks listening.
It really didn't start happening until I got self-aware, though, and because you don't know what your visions are until you can kind of quiet yourself and get there. Yeah.
I'm just saying that we're talking about the meditation. We're talking about that, and it works. The mantra work. When I first started doing mantras, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work, but I got some has to work because what I'm doing ain't working. So let me just keep saying these mantras, and then my inner dialogue started to change.
Well,
and then I started deciding to, fall in love with myself, and then I was able to manifest. So I agree.
Well, let me just say this, Daryl, about this whole thing about yoga. I've worked as a substance abuse therapist too, and I've looked at the 12 steps, and I looked at the history of it, and I wondered, and I said, how could all these white men back in 1933, 35, how could they get together and write this thing called the Big Book, and they didn't have Christianity in it? Because they used to bring the Bible to the meetings, and they all were, Christians of some sort. And I had to look at the history. Bill W., who wrote the book, said he was inspired by this psychiatrist named William James, who had some issues of his own. And I read some of his writings. He was inspired by this Swami who came from India, named Vivekananda. He loved to hear his books, who died smoking and at 30-something years old. Vivekananda didn't do the poses and the asanas that we love to call yoga. He didn't do that stuff. His was of a spiritual, meditative, breathing nature. So his was spiritual work. Yeah. Now here in America, we've turned this over into, okay, we've taken pieces of the whole yoga And we've left out, there's 8 limbs of yoga. We've taken 2. We've taken, let's do some breathing, let's do some asana or poses, and this is yoga. That's not yoga. It's part of it. And so that's what we need to do. Meditation is one of the limbs of yoga. All of that's involved in it. So, but here in America, we like to take just pieces. And that's
some people. That's not true for everybody. That's not true.
Well, no,
I'm not talking about me. I'm just saying in general. That's not true for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, I'm speaking in general. Yeah. And so that the whole thing is, how hard can you do the poses? How difficult poses can you do the American way? And we forget about, and this speaks back to the anger thing as well. If we're always focusing in on doing the most, doing the hardest, we forget about the other half, which is the softness, the gentleness, the internalness. That's the part of yoga. And yoga is merely nothing but a spiritual practice that crosses Islam, Christianity, and any other forms of worship, if people would really look into it.
Mike, you're shaking your head there.
I love you, Larry. Yeah, I just echo everything he said. And one of the things I wanted to dovetail on before was, in trying to get yoga into schools, I'm out here in Northwest Indiana. My wife has taught in Munster. She's taught in Hammond. She's taught in Lake Central. And years of trying to get yoga into schools, meditation into schools. And I get it. It has a stigma with so many people. So 3-4 years ago in the state of Indiana, I heard some of the men here today echoing this. When social emotional learning came in, we trained 653 teachers in the Hammond schools in 1 year. And when we taught them what we taught them and everything, not poses, but in addition to that, other things, when they said, oh my God, this is yoga, this is fabulous, the kids need to do this. And that's what I'm encouraged by, is just getting, if it's subversion to get into the institutions that are established, and let's subvert those institutions. Now is a prime time, because think of the number of teachers, my wife is still a 2nd grade teacher, think of the number of teachers who their anxiety and fear levels are through the roof now because of COVID, and they need this help now too. So I think it's a time that's really good to bring all these other things, remove the stigma from it, get at the social emotional learning aspects of it. The teachers will feel better, the kids will feel better. It could be something that's just, fabulous. And like Larry said, there's so many other branches and things of yoga that people don't know about that they can benefit from. So.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure if we're about top of the hour, but we can definitely keep the conversation going for a few more minutes. I didn't know if we had any questions out there, if there's a way for the chats, but we'll keep that open as well. I wanted to kind of keep going with, the idea of, or the intricacies of yoga and the differences between that and meditation. I know that for me, yoga is a big thing in my toolbox. And when I'm able to, it's the biggest self-investigation tool that I have. And so I really have to get into that physical in order to then get into the spiritual as well. Maybe we can go around the room, and I'm not sure if everyone is a yoga practitioner, but we just kind of talk about what kind of gets you into that state that calms and clears. So I'm gonna start at the top of my screen, which is Luis here. And also, maybe if you can just leave the audience with, a thought or two that you'd like to kind of drive home there.
Righty. Well, I really use meditation as a way to get myself centered in the morning, sometimes in the evening. Throw that question back at me, please, so I'm answering it correctly.
So we're running, just to keep an eye on time. Why don't we just kind of go with last kind of takeaways that we want to leave our audience with? There we go.
All righty, what's up? do what you need to do to get yourself at a place where you are comfortable with being who you are. Know that the anger is hurting you as much as it's hurting anyone else, and you don't want to hurt yourself ever. There are a lot of outside things that are working against you. Remember that what's inside is really important. And if you love yourself at the end of the day, that's good. You know, that's good. If you really like yourself, if you really love yourself, it might get you to a place of happiness and joy, even for a split moment. And if you can recognize those moments when you're like, man, that was really great. Yeah. Tap into that and find a way to get to it over and over again. What's up?
And I love what you said earlier about, you know, there are people out here that love you, that, you know, you can find this love if you just kind of open yourself up to that. Going to keep going around the room here. Mike, did you have any last words there?
Yeah, I would just say I have been proud to be a part of this group and everything, hearing words like love and compassion and peace and understanding and all of that. And if there's one thing I could leave any of the younger men in the group, you know, who might be watching this, is to realize that the men in front of you here are men who have done this work and they're doing this work. And to just get in contact with them and to never give up on believing that there's greatness inside of you, because yoga's goal is for you to find a love inside of yourself that you find in everybody you come in contact with. So keep digging and finding that it is there. Find it.
Yeah. All of our information is on the website here. And if anyone kind of needs that help, you can always find us around the city. We're doing a lot of different things around the city. So, Daryl, any last thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Most definitely. Everything that I do in my wellness kit is spiritual. I actually think we should do another panel discussion on spirituality and what that exactly means, because I don't know if everybody really knows what that means, and what that encompasses. But I would say to thine own self be true, period. Get to know you. If you want to create a wellness kit where you're doing things where you can manifest happiness and manifest peace from within, get to know what brings you light, what makes you shine, what gets you excited, what makes you say wow unexpectedly, what gives you chills. Become a wow chaser. That's what I do. I chase wows because I want to be able to say wow unexpectedly. I want to be able to get those chills. I decide that I'm gonna have a great day before I see it. So but that all comes from getting to, you know, creating a relationship with myself with no judgment.
Yeah. I love your word manifestation, and it's almost a superhuman power that we have, you know, in order to manifest. There are just simple tools that you can do in order to do that. And then Chris, any words that you'd like to leave the audience with there? I think you might be muted, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You know, one thing I always say, you have to really put your passion first in order to follow your dreams. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I'm a firm believer that if you can really find out what you are passionate about, right? A lot of us leave this earth not knowing that. And so if you're young enough to know that there's something out there that you really love, do it, even if you're not getting paid, right? Every job that I ever got, aside from like one or two, I started out volunteering and just doing the work because I loved it. And so I would say, you know, do the work, be disciplined, but really tap into, you know, what that vision is for you and what you see yourself in. Like, don't sell yourself short. You're powerful. You're a powerful being, no matter who you are listening in on this. So thank you, Cassandra, for having us. And as always, it's a pleasure talking with you all, gents, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion. We want to get Abari in here, and your guests can comment too if you like.
Closing remarks. Again, thanks for the invitation. Really enjoy these sessions. One of the things that comes to mind as I think about the combined level of years and expertise on this call is that can sometimes be intimidating to someone, a young person, an old person, anybody that's like trying to do a new thing. when you see the panel of experts, so-called, right, you think, man, how am I gonna get there? But the most important thing for all of us, when we remember the journey of it, start small, do something. It ain't got to be 2 hours in the morning. It could be 5 minutes in the morning, and just commit to that. And the thing that is most productive in the long run isn't going through it fast or trying to get to someone's level as soon as you can, but it's the consistency. And if you do a little bit every day,
Yeah.
and you experience that, and then you appreciate what that does, and then you build on that, then we could build monuments of ourselves and of our work, just one brick at a time.
Habits daily, they can be good or bad, and that's all the cycles that we were talking about as well. Larry, I want to go to you, and I also we're going to wrap up the session with a breathing exercise from you and mindfulness exercise.
Sure. Let me just say this. I don't know if anyone saw the sign that was hanging over his head, but everything that was on that sign is really good. And if you can show that again, if you show Chris again that sign that he was sitting under. Young men have to learn how to be men. Women do a great job, but they need to come in contact with men. And you talk about self-love, you have to learn to take your inventory. They say that in the 12 steps, there's a lot of 12-step groups that will help you do that, but everyone's not going there. But still, you have to learn how to take your inventory. That means looking at your spiritual self, looking at your emotional self, not being afraid of what you might find, being able to discuss it and interact with someone else who can help authenticate that for you. Say, hey, is that really what you're feeling, or is it fear? Things like that. Inventory, and you'll find that you have if you're one of the old dogs and you were raised to be this rock hard, no feeling monster, you'll find that that's all been an illusion, that you do have a soft side, and that side is just as powerful as anything that you've been projecting over your lifetime. Okay, so are we ready for a
Absolutely.
So in my years of doing therapy, I've always introduced breathing and meditation into therapy. And that is, I like to give people the answer before we go into the emotional discussions of interacting. So I'm going to show two things. One is called Eugai Breathing. Okay, some people call it the victory breath or the ocean breath. And I'm just going to close my glottis. So just listen carefully if you can. So I'm inhaling and exhaling. And if you couldn't hear that, I'm going to open my mouth this time. So I inhale through my nose and I exhale through my mouth. Now you hear that sound. So let's try that again. Just inhaling through your nose with your mouth closed this time on the exhale. Inhale. Exhale with the mouth closed. You've just completed a course, successfully completed a course on Eugai Breathing. You get a certificate in the mail. Now, that breath, what it does two things. It starts a vibration and a focus for your mind and your body. And it's a relaxing breath. The other part of that is, let's change the ratio of the breath. The breath is, to me, the base of the brain is a spiritual foundation of man, but you guys didn't ask for that. But because it regulates everything within our body, especially the breath, so evenly. Okay, so evenly. So let's change that ratio. So if we can tap into that brain, we can gain that power. And the body senses that if you make the exhale twice as long as the inhale, that creates a relaxation response. It's physiology, okay? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm inhaling with my Eugai breath, and I'm exhaling twice as long. Okay, that's the breath. I hope everyone could hear that. So what you need to do first, put both feet on the floor, sit up tall. Hands can be in the lap, on the table. Spine is straight. We start the breath with an exhale, pushing the navel gently back to the spine. Then we inhale. Then we exhale twice as long. Okay, continue that breathing. And for those who are having some difficulty, I'll just count for you. Inhale into a count of 4, 2, 3, 4. Exhale to a count of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Slight pause. Inhale again. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. Find your own rhythm. Continue with the breathing. Eugai and 2-to-1 breathing. Visualization is a strong part of meditation. And so you want to, if your mind is still wandering, you want to visualize you inhaling positivity throughout your body, exhaling negativity and discontent. Inhaling the sun, exhaling tension. Whenever your mind wanders, bring the focus back to your lungs, back to your body. 3 more breaths like this. When you're done with your 3 breaths, gently bow your head, open your eyes, and relax. Okay, so slowly open your eyes and relax. So, I don't know what the quality of my voice was or is through this Zoom connection, but I've tried to give you the basic formats of 1 breathing and meditation technique, okay? 2-to-1 breathing, it works, it works. But if you're really upset, you're gonna keep coming back. You need as many things in your toolbox to help yourself calm down. And you can pass it on. If it works for you, pass it on. Okay, namaste.
Thank you so much, Larry, and thank you everyone on the panel. I appreciate all of you and your participation today. And for those of you who are watching now and those of you who will listen to the recording, please feel free to reach out to any person on this panel. As I've mentioned, you can find information about all of them on our social media platforms, and you can do an internet search and of course bring up their organizations, as we mentioned some of them earlier. So thank you panel. Thank you everyone for watching. Before we leave, could we please go back to Chris so that we can see the sign, the picture that Larry was referring to Chris Thomas? Ah, there it is.
I gotta have that sign, Chris. I'm coming for it.
Family rules. Keep your promises. Share. Think of others before yourself. Say, I love you. Listen to your parents. Do your best. Say please and thank you. Always tell the truth. Laugh at yourself. Hug often. Use kind words and love each other. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful day.